Our colleagues, Kendall, Delanian, and Von Hilliard, are covering this developing story since we've been on the air, and I want to share this update to their reporting. They report that Deputy FBI Director Dan Barino is considering leaving his job after this heated confrontation with Attorney General Pam Bondi over his frustration with how the Justice Department has handled the Jeffrey Epstein files. That's according to a person who's spoken with Bonino and a source familiar with Bonino and FBI Director Kash Patel's interactions with Bondi. Quote, Bonino is out of control, furious. The person who has spoken with the deputy FBI director said, quote, this destroyed his career. He's threatening to quit and torch Pam unless she is fired. It's clear he feels like this situation has wrecked his career. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi has been facing some serious backlash. A federal judge and Congress have really taken her to task over her handling of records related to Jeffrey Epstein, along with some other politically sensitive cases from the Trump administration. There's been a judge's order and some potential contempt actions from the House due to her refusal to fully release those Epstein files. All of this, along with earlier criticisms over her decisions and public statements, paints a picture that her legal strategy is falling apart. In the merger that took place, which merger? You've listed many involving American Express GBT. I understand that Brian Ballard, longtime backer and head of the law firm where you worked, was instrumental in lobbying the Justice Department to drop that lawsuit. It was dismissed, so it's not subject to a court review. What conversation did you have with Mr. Ballard? Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service. You lied. You admitted you lied to elected a U.S. senator. You lied about how dare you. I'm a career prosecutor. Don't you ever challenge my integrity. I have abided by every ethics standard. Do not question my ability to be fair and impartial as Attorney General in anything that former firm Ballard partners. Now, moving to more current events, on the 21st of December 2025, there's been some chatter about lawmakers threatening to use Congress's inherent contempt power against Bondi. They could find her every single day. She doesn't fully comply with subpoenas for those Epstein files, especially since she's only given out partial records so far. A bipartisan team with Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Rowana has even drafted a resolution targeting Bondi for her refusal to release the full set of Epstein documents. Interestingly, this route would bypass the courts and only need a simple majority in the House. That inherent contempt power isn't used often, but the threat of the daily fine adds pressure, especially with accusations of her stonewalling the full release. This month, former Justice Department officials accused her of wrecking the Civil Rights Division by dropping or reversing cases initiated under Biden, along with pursuing prosecutions that critics assert are politically motivated in service of Trump. It didn't stop there. Politico highlighted how a federal judge had to step in and tell prosecutors to cool it with Bondi's public attacks on a migrant smuggling defendant and other targets linked to Trump. The judge warned that her comments could really mess with juries and undermine the defendants' rights to a fair trial. These acts of dropping cases from the Biden era and those politically charged prosecutions are serious charges. The judge's warning about poisoning juries is worth noting, too. Lately, it seems like moments where the system is finally pushing back against her aggressive Trump-aligned tactics are popping up, like those inherent contempt moves and the judge's warnings. Bondi has pulled no punches when criticizing judges who block Trump's executive orders, even suggesting that the Supreme Court should reign in the lower courts. However, that confrontational stance seems to be backfiring now, with those rulings and threats of contempt looming over her. It's a turning point where the system is making its stand. So Pam Bondi recently found herself in a bit of a situation after a judge dropped a bombshell regarding the Epstein files, and it has really put her in the spotlight. It's all about how she's been navigating through a tough clash involving Congress, the courts, and a Justice Department that's been accused of some pretty questionable tactics. This whole drama really highlights the system pushing back against her aggressive moves. From her stonewalling on Epstein matters to what some call politicized prosecutions and public attacks that judges claim hurt fair trials. One big factor in this unfolding story is the inherent contempt power. a tool that Congress doesn't use often, but is now being considered against a sitting attorney general. On December 21st, 2025, lawmakers made it clear they might take action if Bondi continues to fail in fully complying with subpoenas for those Epstein files. It's pretty serious because every day she doesn't cooperate, she could face financial penalties. The situation escalated after she only released partial records which didn't meet the requirements of the Transparency Act. That led to bipartisan action with Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Rowana drafting a contempt resolution aimed directly at Bondi for holding back full disclosure of the Epstein documents. This resolution is significant because it would allow them to bypass the courts, needing only a simple majority in the House to push it through, which is much easier than pursuing criminal contempt. So this whole scenario has turned into quite the clash with Bondi at its center, making for an intriguing legal showdown. So here's the situation. Pam Bondi is facing some serious scrutiny, and the whole thing revolves around a criminal contempt case that requires prosecution by the Department of Justice. The kicker is Bondi controls that department, which makes it a bit tricky since she wouldn't exactly want to be the one prosecuting herself. However, there's a way around it. Congress can step in and take direct action without needing the Department of Justice involved. Recently, a group of former Justice Department officials, those who used to work there, released a public letter in December 2025. They didn't hold back, accusing Bondi of wrecking the Civil Rights Division, which is a crucial part of the DOJ. They're saying she's not just reversing decisions made under President Biden, but outright abandoning important cases. Plus, critics point out that she's been bringing prosecutions that look suspiciously driven by political motives to benefit Trump. Adding to the drama, a federal judge has ordered prosecutors to rein in Bondi's public statements, particularly her remarks about a defendant involved in migrant smuggling and other individuals targeted by Trump. The judge's concern is pretty clear. Her comments could poison the potential jurors, which is a serious issue. Polluting the jury pool can undermine defendants' rights to a fair trial, a right guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment, something that Bondi's statements are reportedly threatening. This whole scenario certainly sets up an intriguing showdown between Bondi, the Attorney General, and the federal court. The dynamic is pretty intense, so there's this whole situation with Pam Bondi that really highlights the consequences of her aggressive approach. She runs a Trump-aligned Department of Justice, and we've seen her take aim at judges who blocked Trump's executive orders. She didn't hold back, openly criticizing courts and even suggesting that the Supreme Court should limit their authority. That's a pretty confrontational stance to take. But now it seems like her strategy is backfiring. The courtroom is pushing back, and we're witnessing some serious fallout from her earlier statements and tactics, including contempt threats. This confrontational posture of hers, once seen as strong, is now turning against her in rulings. Another layer to all of this is the ongoing drama with the Epstein files. There's a growing concern that Bondi is working to protect Trump and his allies, which seems to come at the expense of transparency for Epstein's victims. This connection is really damaging her credibility and is prompting lawmakers to seriously consider the extreme move of inherent contempt, showcasing how grave the situation has become. And let's not forget those viral clips from her fiery Senate hearings and media appearances where she promised to punish the villain of the piece, which certainly adds to the context of this unfolding drama. It's quite a turn of events, seeing how her earlier bravado is now catching up with her. So there's a real contradiction going on with Pam Bondi, right? She talks a big game about going after certain defendants, promising to hold them accountable while at the same time being super hesitant to release any Epstein-related material that involves some pretty powerful folks. It's frankly hard to believe she's trying to protect those powerful figures while claiming to seek justice for others. This whole situation is playing out in late December 2025. And it's kind of wild that just as more Epstein files are being revealed, she's caught in this mess. The House is stepping in using an aggressive, rarely seen power of contempt against a sitting attorney general, which is a huge deal. This is the first time anything like this has happened, and it really puts Bondi, who was handpicked by Trump, in the spotlight. The stakes are high with Congress and the courts clashing along with a Justice Department that some say has been weaponized. It creates this dramatic narrative where a judge drops a bombshell and Bondi just collapses under the pressure. All of this is layered with the real challenges she's facing, from direct confrontations with Congress and judges to public letters from former officials calling her out for allegedly dismantling the Civil Rights Division to serve Trump's interests instead of pursuing true justice. It's a chaotic scene, to say the least. So, critics are really laying into Pam Bondi, claiming she doesn't deliver justice fairly. They allege that she breaks the standard by protecting Donald Trump while going after his opponents through politically charged prosecutions. The judge has even called her out for what they see as efforts to sway juries with her public attacks against defendants. It appears her motivations align with benefiting Trump, and that has led to her facing a lot of pressure from all directions. We're talking about pressure from Congress, the courts, and even former officials. These former officials signed a letter accusing her of causing destruction, which is significant enough to be the bombshell that has led to her collapse. This collapse is happening under the weight of criticism from various sources with documentation of her behavior that could jeopardize fair trials. It seems she's been shielding powerful figures, especially those linked to the Epstein files. Despite the Transparency Act that Trump signed, she seems to be stonewalling, not releasing information fully, which is the basis for contempt. Congress is threatening her with a resolution that could impose daily fines until she complies with subpoenas for the Epstein files that hold damaging info on Trump and other influential individuals. These are people Bondi might be protecting, and it comes at the expense of victims who are rightly seeking transparency. Now, bringing all this together, Pam Bondi's collapse after the judge unveiled this significant information about the Epstein files raises serious questions about accountability within the Justice Department and Congress's ability to oversee. It makes us think about whether her aggressive tactics aligned with Trump can withstand ongoing pressure from the courts, Congress, and former officials who claim she has undermined the mission of the Justice Department. The facts are clear and documented through congressional actions, court orders, and public letters. So lawmakers are getting serious about Pam Bondi and are considering using Congress's authority to impose fines if she continues to hold back on providing documents related to Epstein. She's only handed over some records, and now a bipartisan duo, Thomas Massie from the Republican side and Ro Khanna from the Democrats, have drafted a resolution to hold her in contempt. This move would mean they can skip the courts and only need a simple majority in the House to take action, which is quite a bold step. Then there are former Justice Department officials who have publicly called out Bondi, accusing her of wrecking the Civil Rights Division by ditching or reversing cases from the Biden administration and pushing politically motivated prosecutions that align with Trump's interests. On another note, there's been a federal judge who has had to step in, telling prosecutors they need to rein in Bondi when she makes public comments about defendants. The judge is clearly concerned that her words could bias juries and threaten the defendant's right to a fair trial. The whole situation is bursting with drama. First, there's the issue of contempt. Every day she doesn't comply, she faces the risk of being fined, which is a pretty significant threat. Then the bipartisan resolution targeting her is another big deal. It's rare to see both parties come together for something like this. The former officials' accusations add even more heat, painting a picture of a destroyed civil rights division and highlighting how Trump's administration has influenced prosecutions. The judge's warning about Bondi's public commentary is another layer to this unfolding story, bringing up important concerns about jury bias and fair trial rights. It's clear that the system is starting to push back against her aggressive tactics, especially around the Epstein case. As I look ahead, one can't help but wonder what this all means for Bondi's future, especially as the contempt resolution moves forward and a House vote looms on the horizon. There's significant historical weight here as it involves actions against a sitting attorney general and shows bipartisan effort despite a polarized political climate. The judges are clearly responding to Bondi's public statements, raising a key question: can her controversial tactics really hold up? Pam Bondi is really feeling the heat right now. She's getting pushed from all angles, courts, Congress, and even some former officials, all pushing back against her tough tactics. Critics have been pointing out that her approach seems to weaponize the Department of Justice to benefit Trump instead of serving justice equally for everyone, including high-profile figures tied to the Epstein files. But Bondi isn't budging. Instead, she's stonewalling and facing some serious contempt from Congress, which is now using its inherent powers to bypass the DOJ, a department she's supposed to control, but clearly won't prosecute herself. This inherent contempt allows Congress to take direct action without her getting in the way, which makes her situation even trickier. She's clearly threatened by the scrutiny over the Epstein files she refuses to fully release, despite the Transparency Act that's supposed to ensure those documents are made public. While she promises to hold other monsters accountable in different cases that have political weight for Trump, she's been accused of neglecting her duties regarding the Civil Rights Division, which was there to protect rights that she allegedly let slip away for politically motivated prosecutions. It seems like she's willing to smear Trump's perceived enemies publicly, even before their trials, which, let's be honest, might bias the juries who hear her claims. A judge has already called her out for undermining the fair trial that every defendant deserves, even those Trump wants prosecuted through her DOJ. Many believe this DOJ has become weaponized in a way that protects Trump rather than serving justice. This whole situation reached a boiling point with the contempt threat hanging over her like a bombshell, making it clear that Bondi is collapsing under the sheer pressure from every side. Everything happening at once just adds to the gravity of the situation. Pam Bondi is really feeling the heat lately. It's quite something to witness as she faces the consequences of her aggressive strategies that have backfired spectacularly. She's been stonewalling when it comes to releasing the Epstein files despite Congress demanding access through subpoenas. Ignoring those subpoenas has landed her in a bit of a bind with the threat of contempt looming large. This whole situation has escalated, leading to judicial rebukes and official condemnation, all hitting simultaneously and creating quite the dynamic. It's almost like the system is pushing back, especially against a hand-picked attorney general serving Trump's agenda. The scrutiny from Congress is fierce, and they are not holding back on the inherent contempt they're threatening for her stonewalling tactics. The pressure is really mounting, and that's what led to her collapse when a judge delivered a bombshell during a recent confrontation. Pam Bondi has been cornered under intense scrutiny from federal judges, Congress, and former Department of Justice officials, all claiming that her tactics have weaponized and undermined the very mission of the Justice Department. In essence, it seems she's now facing a reality check, and the fallout from her conduct is unfolding right before our eyes. So here we are in late December 2025, and it seems like things are heating up for Pam Bondi. Lawmakers are seriously considering using Congress's inherent contempt power against her. They want to find her every single day she doesn't fully comply with requests for Epstein files. It all kicked off when she only released partial records, not exactly meeting the requirements of the Transparency Act. Now, a bipartisan duo, Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Ro Khanna, has put together a contempt resolution aimed at Bondi for what they see as her stonewalling in releasing the full stash of Epstein documents. This tactic could bypass the courts entirely and only needs a simple majority in the House to pass. Meanwhile, some former Justice Department officials are voicing their concerns, accusing Bondi of messing up the Civil Rights Division. They've pointed out how she dropped or reversed cases initiated under Biden and pursued prosecutions that critics claim were driven by political motives to curry favor with Trump. In a twist, a federal judge had to step in and tell prosecutors to rein in Bondi's public comments, especially those directed at a migrant smuggling suspect, noting that her remarks could sway juries and hurt the defendant's right to a fair trial. Bondi's confrontational style seems to be backfiring. First, she slammed judges for blocking Trump's executive orders, and now she's facing a pushback from both the courts and Congress. Those mass-alleled efforts and the judge's warnings about her statements mark some major turning points in this saga. The ongoing fight over the Epstein files is really underlining how lawmakers feel she's protecting Trump and his allies, while failing to ensure transparency for Epstein's victims. It's a striking contrast when you think about her earlier promises to bring justice to the monster in other cases. While she's hesitating to fully release information related to Epstein that involves influential figures, critics are calling this a case of selective justice. As more Epstein files continue to emerge, it looks like Bondi, Trump's chosen attorney general, is now at the center of a bigger clash between Congress, the courts, and an apparent Justice Department that some see as being used as a political tool. The real question looming over all of this is whether Bondi's Trump-aligned tactics can hold up against the dual pressures from the courts pushing back on her public comments and Congress dangling the threat of inherent contempt. There's a lot going on with her, especially with accusations flying around about how she's messed with the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Mission, all in favor of politically motivated prosecutions. It's pretty wild to see the system push back from all sides like this. She's facing some serious consequences, as many critics argue that she's been using the Justice Department to protect big names linked to the Epstein files while not being transparent about them. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on her situation as judges keep dropping these surprise decisions and Congress gears up to take action over the showdown concerning those Epstein files. Make sure to stay tuned so you won't miss any updates.